It's of a merchant's daughter brought up in Callio. Hurrah, me yellow gal, do let me go. She took me in the parlor and said, won't you be me beau? Hurrah, me yellow gal, do let me go. Oh, do.
Hey everybody, and welcome to FADED Folklore with your host Travis Nelson. This is a web series, drunk history, but more fun and cooler, and still on. So we outlasted them. This is episode 2. We did record. We recorded this one already one time, but I was so drunk that the cameras weren't working correctly.
Like camera issues.
Yeah, it was on me.
Good news is I don't remember anything of this story. So.
No, and it's a one of my favorite stories. So this one, all right, this is the second one coming right out of Grays Harbor. Yeah, this desk is not secured. This is a board on top of.
I understand. On top of 2 sawhorses?
Yeah,
got you. Yeah.
I'm going to tell Chase the story of Billy Gohl, the Ghoul of Grays Harbor.
So this is what I know about him.
Yeah. Let me know.
Murder. That's all I know. Just no murder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really about as far as I've gotten with this. So this is like completely fresh to me.
I guess I should do a trigger warning for this one, but it would have contained so much. So like murder, violence.
If anything traumatic has happened to you, probably sit this one out.
Yeah. Cannibalism. Let's see, poisoning. He was a pirate. He got convicted of piracy. So this is a crazy story. Because essentially this is a story of a man who was able to just be a psychopath given the circumstances of early 1900s Aberdeen, Washington. So most of this I got from the book called On the Harbor by John C. Hughes and Ryan Teague Beckwith. This was like a common coffee table book when I was a kid. Like, it was always around. I've read through this book many, many times.
This area is so fucked up with these type of
it really is. Washington State, by the way, look it up. We have so many serial killers here. I'm not sure what the deal is. There's a restaurant in Aberdeen called Billy's, and it's supposed to be in the old, like, he owned a whorehouse, or like a boarding house, and it's basically a restaurant there, but it's like, there's a sign out, it's like a busty prostitute, and it says Billy's.
So, but it's his old place, like it's his old whorehouse, and now it's a restaurant.
Yeah.
And a little tip of the cap to
yeah,
what came before them.
One of the most prolific serial killers in America's history.
Here's looking at you, Billy.
Because it's complicated. Like, locally, he was like a union guy, and it's a big union place, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, let me set the tone for you. It's like 1910, and there's a guy named John Klingenberg, okay?
Okay.
Finnish guy. I don't know how to do a Finnish accent.
Unnecessary. Don't need to.
I think what I'll do is I'll kind of do like a mix between Dracula and a robot. I think that's going to work.
You think it's going to work?
I mean, if I have to do his voice, I can't remember what I've written down, so I'm not sure if I'm doing his voice, but I'm doing a character, and that's what I'm going for. All right. So John Klingenberg in 1910, there's a funny like little anecdote about him where he was a donkey man, by the way. Chase, what do you think?
A jackass?
What do you think a donkey man is? What profession is a donkey man?
So this is a man that gives people tours of the city on donkeys. That's what the donkey man does.
See, that's a bad guess.
Okay.
Because nobody wants to see Aberdeen. No one's going on a tour of Aberdeen, Chase.
The donkey man is the man in town that sells local raised donkeys.
I'm going to give you this hint. It has nothing to do with donkeys. A donkey man is, in movies like the guys who are shoveling coal into like an engine.
Okay.
I think that's a donkey man, basically.
All right.
Yep. But he got on a schooner sailing for San Francisco, and the captain threw him in the brig and didn't tell him what it was about, and they just went back and sailed back to Grays Harbor. And once they got to the port, they went to let him out of the jail cell, and they told him he was wanted for the murder of 2 men. And he said, "Thank God, I thought you were taking me back to Billy Gohl." That's who this dude was. His whole name is William F. Gohl, but they called him Billy Gohl. Born in Germany. This book said 1873. I've seen 1860. It's his early history is really kind of fuzzy, and no one really knows. And that's part of his legend. Is a lot of people have kind of added in fun little things that have happened. One thing I saw is he originally left Germany because he killed a guy. So that's how he leaves his country, that he has to
flees, I believe is the word.
He goes on an adventure to the land of freedom, and he comes out here where he can murder many, many more people. And essentially what he did is he went up and worked in Alaska for a while for like a mining company, until the guy he had partnered up with there died.
Mysteriously? Of natural causes.
Yeah, he died. And then Billy moved down to San Francisco, and he became a local agent for the Sailors Union of the Pacific. So if you haven't looked into like unions in the early 1900s, it's wild stuff.
Who hasn't, honestly?
I mean, you really have, but if you do, it's wild. It's really crazy stuff because you have organizations of like working men, and then you have big companies or rich people hiring essentially goons, like the Pinkerton Agency. You've heard of them. So they hire them to go break up the unions and bust. So it's incredibly violent, and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on during this time. Like, for example, there was, you know what Shanghaiing is? So to Shanghai someone is essentially you're kidnapping them and forcing them to work on a ship.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had things that were called misery ships, which were ships that no one could possibly be paid to work on because the conditions were so horrible. And so the way that they got people to work on those ships was not by improving those conditions, but by paying people to Shanghai sailors. So
kidnap people.
You go into a bar, they give you something called I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but they had Mickey Fins is what they called them, but that was basically the knockout drug they would use.
Mickey.
They called them Mickey Fins. They'd slip it into your drink, and then they drag you out the back, and then you work on a ship until you die.
Okay.
So
tough break.
Yeah, man.
Just having a drink.
Yeah. The Coastal Seamen's Union, Andrew Furseth is the guy that they interviewed in some union dispute, and he said, this is him quoted as saying, "You can put me in jail, but you cannot give me narrower quarters than as a seaman I have always had. You cannot give me coarser food than I've always eaten. You cannot make me lonelier than I have always been." So that's kind of how life is back then.
You can't break me. There's nothing you can do to me that I haven't done to myself.
Can't crush dirt. You won't be rid of me. I'm the worst. So Billy Gohl, by the way, before I get too much further into the story, I do want to say off the top, he's responsible for, they think, between 40 and 200 murders. There was
wide range there.
Pretty wide, and there was 124 bodies found total. He was responsible for something that they call it the Flotella Fleet, which was essentially just bodies they would find floating down the river out to the ocean, or floaters flotilla. And that was the funny name they had for all the dead bodies that were popping up all over the place.
Hilarious.
Yeah, but it was kind of like the perfect scenario for that. I mean, perfect's a weird word to use, but the way everything was set up was they constantly had ships coming in and out, and they also had these logging crews coming in and out and in and out. Mm-hmm. And just because everything was so chaotic, that left for so much room that this guy was able to murder all these people, and they could never nail him on it, because it could have just been so many other people that murdered all those other people. You know what I mean? Like, it was just that kind of a place. So anyways, before he gets to Grays Harbor, he goes to San Francisco. and he's trying to make a name for himself with the unions there. And he does by getting a bunch of union guys together, and then he sneaks onto a ship and pretends to be friends with like one of the guys on the ship. And once he's on the ship, he just pulls a gun and like one by one make sure everyone puts their weapons
I'm not
down.
your friend at all.
No. He disarmed them one by one and took the ship into the shore where he had his like gang of guys who just beat the ever-loving shit out of the scab crew. This guy would kill any scab. Like a scab is just someone who takes a union job who's not union, and that's how intense it was back then. This guy was out to murder all scabs, and you're going to hear that a lot in the story. So in 1902, basically right after he did that whole steal a ship and beat the shit out of all those guys, he got out of San Francisco really fast. And I think he was running away because it's not like he left and immediately joined another union. He left and then became a cigar shop clerk.
Laid low, changed his name.
Yeah, different accounts will say he was a bartender or a cigar shop clerk. I kind of think he was both. But he loved brothels. He did a lot of his business in them.
What's not to love, dude?
Yeah, man.
Rent a conference room and a brothel and have a couple meetings. And...
It's hard to explain, like, how normal all this, like, there's a lot of, places around Aberdeen, Hoquin where it's like, yeah, it was an old brothel. Like, yeah, this
used to be the sexiest city.
It's a place with a lot of
Washington.
Bars. The joke was when I moved there, my dad told me, because he had lived there when he was younger, and the joke about it when he lived there was it had as many bars as it had whorehouses as it had churches.
It's a good mix.
Yeah,
it's the Holy Trinity, honestly.
Father, the Son, and the Holy shit. So he wound up marrying a 27-year-old bar hall girl named Bessie Hager, who claimed to be a descendant of Jesse James. Yeah.
I mean, that's a match made in heaven.
Yeah. Cousin of... a descendant of Jesse James. That really plays nothing into the story, but it really paints it beautifully. Yeah.
I mean, that's who he was supposed to be with.
How they met was recorded as Billy got mean drunk and got fresh. She landed him one on the chin that knocked him down, then kicked him in the ribs. Billy admired her courage. And just as a note, 5 years later, during his murder trial I can't speak because I'm drunk. An informant testified that he planned to add her to his list of victims. So this guy talked a lot of shit, and he pretty much threatened to kill everyone in town. So it loses a little bit of credence, but it's pretty ice cold that he was like, eventually I was going to murder my wife. So in 1900, Aberdeen was a population of 10,000, including the logging camps, which was serviced by 34 saloons. So... You know Aberdeen.
Yeah.
You know how big Aberdeen is.
Familiar with it, yeah.
And now think about how it's got 34 saloons. It's not a huge town. It's a crazy number of saloons.
Everybody gets their own.
Yeah, everyone gets their own saloon. And you remember performing in like that castle?
Yeah.
The haunted castle.
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot of like castles built by these like lumber barons back in the day. Like logging out here was insane. The port of Grays Harbor, which is where all this happened. My dad's actually the director of the port of Grays Harbor, oddly enough now. But way back then, it was even back then it was crazy. Like they shipped around this time. They had shipped over 1 billion yards of lumber out of that port, and 1 billion. If you're a mathematician, is a crazy,
it's a lot,
crazy high number of like a physical thing,
anything.
like yards of wood. So there was a lot of money moving around, and there was also a lot of immigrants. Like a lot of the guys working there, most people didn't speak English. There was just like different, different languages all around.
Understand that math. Understand logs.
Yeah. Logs is a universal language. Right. Lumber is. They had things that I thought you would like this note. They had cruise-in booze-ins because the sailors didn't like having to mix with the lumberjacks, so they would just have drive through bars, but like for your boat.
I do like that.
Yeah, I thought you would. So he got into the inner circles of the sailor union after he moved up, worked at the cigar shop. The cigar shop burned down. And then
Coincidence. Just another coincidence. This man can't catch a break.
He leaves a trail.
Everywhere he goes, his fucking partners are dying.
Yeah.
And
Nobody's surviving this guy.
places are burning down. Like, dude, how unlucky can you be?
Exactly. So he got into the inner circles of the Sailors Union and appointed himself agent for the Aberdeen branch. So that's kind of how this guy rolled. Was he just got into town and he was like, I run this. And nobody stood up to him. So the Union Hall was strategically located above a saloon on the west bank of the Wishkah River. The Wishkah River, if that sounds familiar, you're probably remembering it from Nirvana's From the Muddy Banks of the Wishkah.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
I like that it's strategically located there.
So, right. So what it means by strategically located. So the river comes in, right? This was actually, it was built out over the river. Like, if you drive into Hoquiam now, you can see the pilings in the river.
Okay.
Where it used to stand. And it's crazy, because it's that right on the river. And what they said he would do was basically murder people and drop them into the river, and they would just float out to the ocean.
That is crazy.
Right.
And good location, though. Location.
This dude moved.
Don't do that.
Yeah, that was close. I almost ashed in my whiskey. I've got so much going on now. Yeah, so it's weird. If this guy really was a serial killer and a psychopath, it was like he staked out the perfect scenario for himself. Because obviously San Francisco didn't work out, so then he had to shy away. But he could have gone Tacoma, Seattle, and he chose Grays Harbor because I think he knew he could just get away with it.
Just felt right, you know?
Yeah.
You know it when you know it.
The Union Hall was strategically located above the saloon on the river in a noisy, bustling area of town that provided cover for Gohl's exploits. So this guy would do stuff like when he would wait for a Mills whistle to go off before he shot someone in the head. Like he strategized. He used the terrain to his advantage a lot. And essentially, he just rolled in town, and the list of unsolved murders in the town just started growing. Which is crazy because this was a literal Flotella's fleet. Like, sometimes they'd find 10 dead bodies in a day just floating around out in the water. And at that point, they were like, do you think these are related?
Any chance?
Yeah, they're just, that's what, that's kind of what...
Oh, these are those bodies.
Yeah.
Oh.
You think this is that guy? No, couldn't be. So he was somewhat of an honest criminal in that he bragged. He liked to just drink and talk shit about all the things he did, but he would say that he did crazy shit, like he ate a guy during a cold snap in the Yukon when he was working up in Alaska.
Didn't even have to.
Didn't even have to. Just bring it up, bragging to it. Chase, remember that time I ate that dude's foot?
Look, man, it was cold for like 3 days. I didn't know what was going to happen. So.
His foot didn't have the right. So he also bragged about how he burned that Aberdeen cigar shop to the ground. And he stole an arsenal from a sporting goods store. And his thing was he would brag about all those things and deny that he ever murdered anyone. That was his thing. He never murdered anybody, which seems...
I set things on fire and I steal things. I'm not a murderer.
I do a lot of crimes around murder, but I stop at murder, said the guy who murders everyone. It's such a weird place to put your foot down. Like, well, don't say I ever murdered anybody. That's admissible in court. So when a strike caused citizens in Hoquiam to start talking about an arbitration by citizens committee, so basically what that was the city owns the port, and they disagreed with how the union was kind of running things, mm-hmm. And so they were starting to push for more regulation. And so what Billy Gohl did was he just hung around that bridge that you have to cross to get into Aberdeen, and he searched everybody with a 45 on each hip and a shotgun under his arm. And when they asked him what he was doing, he said he was just making sure no one had any illegal firearms in their vehicles.
Dude, just helping the community out.
Just a big fan of the community out here. As I said at the beginning, he also managed to get himself convicted for piracy in 1906.
How'd you get into that, Billy?
He got into piracy, dude. He and 16 armed cohorts boarded a non-union ship planning on murdering the crew. One man was killed, and I don't think the guys he brought with him knew he was trying. I thought they just thought he was gonna like take the ship and beat guys up. But then they got on and he just murdered a guy, and they're like, "Whoa, Billy, you can't do that!" And so Billy got a $1,200 fine
For murder?
Yeah, which that would have been $34,000 today.
Hefty
So
price.
yeah, man. Hope you have a good job. He appealed to the Supreme Court, but was denied. And
I'd love to hear that argument.
the union wound up paying his fine for him. Later in 1906, a mill manager refused to give in to union demands, and Billy threatened to blow up all the harbor's mills, just all the mills in the harbor. And a bomb they found failed to go off, but it was followed by a series of mysterious fires and murders targeted towards opponents of Gohl. Which is kind of funny that he tried to do the bomb but couldn't figure the bomb out, so he just started lighting fires. He's like, fire is simple, fire is easy.
I know fire.
Yeah. I didn't go to school for these bombs.
All your fancy bomb learning.
Yeah, he
Good old-fashioned caveman fires, all right?
easy. You get a stick, you say, you grunt a little bit, and you touch it to whatever you want to set on fire. First was a hotel and saloon owned by an enemy of Billy's, a guy named Lee Williams. Doesn't really matter. A different enemy of his.
We care about you, Lee.
Not me, Lee. I don't give a shit. You're gone to history. But another. What's funny was he burned down that dude's house, and he got another guy he was enemies with, George Griswold. Which this guy had so many enemies, but he burned George in the fire. So
Yeah.
Lee's property burned, and then George's life's burned.
Okay.
Yeah, so he got, pretty efficient. Another fire destroyed the Zalasko block managed by Ralph E. Matt Peasley, who had parted Gohl's company over commissions for waterfront commerce. So they got into basically a rent debate about the waterfront, and Billy just burned down the whole block of all the buildings this dude owned.
Now who you gonna rent it to?
Yeah, I've ruined you. By the way, you better run, because I don't just burn. Burning is how I begin. A lumber buyer foolishly flashed a wad of bills while visiting an Aberdeen brothel. 3 days later, his body was fished out of the Wishkah. About the same time, a sailor was found with a bullet in his skull. Gohl said, "I shot the son of a bitch from my office with my Winchester. I bet that scab won't ever cross me again."
I bet.
Again, just really into killing these scabs.
That's how you make that guarantee, is you kill him, and then you go, I guarantee he won't do that again.
Yeah.
That's...
And his friends will think twice, I killed them yesterday.
Yeah.
Sea captains hated him. The town celebrated when Captain Michael McCarran of the Sophie Christensen piloted his ship through the narrow Wishkah Channel and speared the privy attached to Gohl's building overhanging the river that navigated the harbor with... He navigated the harbor with a two-seater outhouse swinging from the front of the boat.
Oh, shit.
Do you understand what I mean? So Billy's office was over the river, and his shitter was kind of over the river, so he would just shit into the river. And this dude just drove by and took the shitter off his building and just...
And kept going.
Yeah, and just sailed around with the shitter in the front of his building.
Well, I mean, that's great if it didn't mean that he's got to die now.
Yeah, that's a really funny thing to happen. I think this is one of those scenarios where, like, someone gets, like, a really good prank in on someone who they don't realize will murder them.
Right.
You know, it's like, that was hilarious. Hey, where'd that guy go? Ironically, Billy was arrested for stealing 2 car blankets from a guy named A.L. Payne in Hoquiam. His roommate, Charles Hadberg, this is Billy's roommate, testified that he'd purchased the blankets at a pawn shop and gave them to Billy. So he covered for Billy so Billy, could get out of jail. By the way, Billy murdered Charles in 1909. Just a fun note.
I'm just trying to picture going to a coffee shop and then being like, hey, what's this book on this table? And then it'd be however many pages of murder.
Nah, man. I was so numb to this.
What is it that people like about this guy?
I took a homecoming date to the restaurant Billy's.
Yeah, I mean...
You know what I liked about that place when I was a kid? One of the entrees that you could buy was called rattlesnake eggs. And it would come in a manila envelope that just said rattlesnake eggs and had like a rattlesnake on it. And it had like garnishings and stuff around it. So it was a real good bullshit thing where you're like, what the fuck is this? And it's like, careful, keep this cold or they'll hatch or something like that. And when you open up the manila envelope, there's like a washer and a rubber band attached to like another bit of plastic. So, and it's all wound up, so when you open it, it rattles. Scares the fuck out of people.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it scared the shit out of me, and then I played that joke on every single person I could get to open that fucking rattlesnake thing. It's a huge bit for me when I was a kid. I loved it. People hate thinking they're about to be attacked by baby rattlesnakes, it turns out.
For sure.
Anyways. I may be a little jaded. This stuff rolls off my back a little bit. So, strangely, Billy was really popular with sailors. It's weird that like it's always the guys who are fucking everyone over that people love. You know what I mean? Like it's
people just like people in power.
That's true. Yeah. So they just thought he was the man. So he got a reputation, and they would always go and let him hold their money so they wouldn't spend it on booze, prostitutes, gambling, you know, Aberdeen stuff. And Billy would...
No more trusted man with your money.
No, man. Billy Gohl was the dude.
And Billy.
It's got to be Billy. So Billy would open his safe and tell them to put their money into a compartment of their choosing. As they put their money into the compartment, his thing was he would just brain them with a belaying pin. And a belaying pin is basically just a club that's a part of a boat. But he had a belaying pin.
How did he get two people to do this?
Man.
How after the
200, you mean?
Yeah, but seriously, how did the second person do it after the first person was like, yeah, I'm going to give my money to Billy.
Put it right down there.
And
you know what's a good one is the bottom one.
And then you never see that guy again. And then the next guy is like, I'm going to give my money to Billy. I'm going to go ahead.
Exactly. You never heard negative feedback. He cut that loop. He cut that loop off right at the bud. He had a trap door, and that's how they used to get rid of trash and stuff. Is they would just dump it in the river, you know. And so yeah, he would just. And there are reports that he would shoot these guys in the head, but I don't think that was happening in the office because you wouldn't want to clean the blood up. So I think he was just knocking them out and dumping the bodies. So the tides would carry in, and...
That's your thought on that one?
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And the tides would carry the bodies into, like, the sloughs and creeks, or out into the harbor, and then that's when it became known as the Floater Fleet, or the Floaters Flotilla. Mm-hmm. Eventually, he actually bought a boat that he could put under his office and just take the bodies out and dump them into the bay, where they wouldn't, like, come in and get found. So they would find about 10 bodies a month for, like, years.
Nothing to see here. Nothing weird about that.
Yeah, that's just normal. So Gohl would be called to the mortuary because of his contacts. You know, like when a sailor died, they'd be like, who knew him? Oh, the guy in town that you have. Like, he was kind of the bank for all these guys. It's like, oh, you would go talk to him, and then he would come and be like, oh, yeah, that's that dude. Don't worry, I'll give his money back to his family. And then, you know.
And of course.
Yeah. And the money would go exactly where it was supposed to go. Every time.
Good old Billy.
And originally Billy was kind of cool about it. And like the only way he could possibly be cool after murdering these people for their money, he would pay for them to have a funeral and like all that stuff. And then he just decided he was tired of that. So he stopped identifying the corpses, so they would just be buried as unknown on unknown burial plots by the county. So he wouldn't have to pay for it. So just continuing to be a really cool guy. Eventually, Gohl and the floater fleet gained notoriety and started hampering business, leading to the appointment of Chief George Dean, who promised to take Gohl down. At one point, Dean says he's found a body of a man he'd talked to on the street a week earlier, asking about lodging. They found a watch on him with the name Otto Kurtz, who was alive, and said he'd sold the watch to a guy named Rudolf Alterman. So Billy didn't figure out the guy's name. He just saw the name on the watch. It was like, oh yeah, that's that guy. But a different guy sold him the watch that happened to have his name on it. Yeah. So then Dean kind of realized that that Billy,
Huh.
yeah,
Maybe Billy's not the most trustworthy guy in this city.
yeah, that's the first time anyone thought that. Well, that's not true. A mayor was actually elected because everyone was terrified of Billy, and they elected the mayor because he was like, "I'm gonna get hard on Billy," and he was just talking about cracking down on Billy.
On the Billy problem.
Mm-hmm.
Billy in order, where are you?
Yeah, we're gonna get Billy. 3 years later, because Chief Dean then he was pretty sure that Billy was killing people, but he didn't have any hard evidence. So 3 years later, 3 years of Billy murdering people later, Chief Dean used the mayor's secret fund, so they got a bunch of the business owners in the area to put money in, so the taxpayers didn't know they were going after Billy because they didn't want Billy to find out. And they hired detectives from the Thiel agency, which I believe is adjacent to the Pinkertons. It's like a poor man's Pinkertons, maybe, or just, same idea. So they had these Thiel agents come out, Agent McHugh and Agent Montana. The guy's name was like Billy Montana.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty cool guy. So their thing was they moved in and they bought the saloon under Billy's office. And immediately found that trap door, and they were like, oh, okay. And they,
Why would you need a trap door? All right.
yeah, and then they became Billy's confidants, like gained his trust, and had him telling them all the stuff he was doing.
Which just meant they just, hey, let's go get a beer, Billy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy, you want to get a beer and tell us about murder? Which he did.
I'd love nothing more.
Yeah, one of the first things he told him is that he left 4 scab sailors on Moon Island off of Hoquiam. So off of Hoquiam, there's like a little island during an incoming tide.
Go check, I'm telling you.
Yeah, the island gets enveloped by water, right? So he left them all out there because they told him that he couldn't swim. And they verified the sailors disappeared, but no one ever found the bodies. So because no one found the bodies, they couldn't say whether they were alive or dead, and they couldn't charge him. So eventually, A.W. Andy Jacobson, one of the two, he came to Chief Dean and he said, Billy and me are good friends, but he killed my little dog. So dog died. And by the way, this guy, similar to the last Faded Folklore, there is a Keanu Reeves, there is a John Wick.
Oh, good.
This story, and that's this Andy Jacobson. He doesn't murder anyone. His Wick thing is like, if you just take out the murder, and instead of murder, put snitching in, that's this guy.
Okay.
So he ratted on everybody. So he said, Billy and me are good friends, but he killed my little dog. He don't know I am not his friend anymore. He killed my little dog. So obviously pretty upset about the little dog. He told me we kill a sailor and kept his money. I think he told the truth. He said he sent the sap out to sit on a post on the dock and watch for a boat to come in. Then Billy went to a back window and picked him off with a rifle. Said he plugged him in the head and he fell in the bay like a chunk of lead. He waited until the mill whistles before blowing so nobody heard the shot. Billy took his $200. So Billy killed that guy for $200, which was that's like $5,700 today. So pretty, for when you just
so
adjust for
little
inflation,
work, and for so little work,
why wouldn't you?
I just got to tell the dude to sit there and shoot him. Cool.
Hey man, I'll give you $500 if you sit right there for 3 hours. Rumor had it that 3 men broke into a home of a Finnish family in Ocean Shores, raped their daughter, and killed their cattle.
All right.
Descriptions fit Gohl, John Hoffman, a cigar dealer, and Charles Hadberg, who was Gohl's roommate, right?
It fit the 3 of them?
Yeah, they were like, I'm pretty sure it was those 3 dudes.
Gotcha.
Billy's drinking escalated, and Hoffman, Hadberg...
I had a moment where I thought it was a description of one person, and so just everybody in Billy's life looked like him.
Oh, that's so funny.
Got 3 identical dudes just out there hanging out.
Does he have twins? Triplets? It's just there's 8 different Billy
There's an
Gohls.
evil Billy Gohl.
That's why they can't catch him. They're like, which one was it? I can't say for sure. There's 8 of them.
Which one do I choose?
I wish I could live in your brain. Oh God. So Billy's drinking escalated. Hoffman, Hadberg, and John Klingenberg vanished. Right?
Okay.
So Billy confided in McHugh and Montana.
Another coincidence.
Yeah. Billy confided in McHugh in Montana, which was the Thiel agents, that they'd gone away for good. That was the phrasing he used.
I just know.
Yeah, pretty sure they're not coming back. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I murdered them. So that's when Klingenberg was found on that schooner, headed to San Francisco. Actually, I think it was headed to Mexico. That's how I started the story, right? So Gohl demanded a warrant for Hadberg's arrest. So Klingenberg they found, and Gohl demanded that Hadberg be arrested, claiming that he had stolen $400 from Billy. So people are trying to find this dude's body, and Billy's like, that dude stole $400 from me. I want him apprehended.
That's the problem here.
Yeah. River shacks were very common back then. They were often made out of stolen lumber and full of stolen equipment. So they're just shacks up and down the river that probably did crimes in with just stolen loot and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There were rumors that Billy used these shacks to lure sailors and loggers in to kill them, which would make sense. Some people think it's just a coincidence, and he just happened to have a lot of shacks that his friends used to hang out in, but I don't believe that. I think he was shooting people in the head there. Dean became an undercover search. So the funny thing about this Dean, this Chief Dean, is he's like really proud that he's the guy who takes Billy down, but it took him like 4 years, and this guy murdered like 200 people.
Yeah, at least. That's what we know of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Dean began an undercover search with brothers of Hadberg, Klingenberg, and Hoffman. So he just called out to these guys' brothers and was like, let's do like a Western movie, and we're going to posse up. So they pretended to be fishermen because they were still very afraid of Billy. And they combed the river, and on February 3rd, 1910, at low tide, they found Hadberg partially submerged in mud. On his back was a 50-pound anchor. He had 2 bullet wounds to the head. So that's what happened to that dude.
Yeah.
And who knows if Billy did it, but if he did, he afterwards accused him of stealing $400 and was like, arrest that man, which is just
he wronged me. That's what happened.
Dean and Detective Church confronted Billy at the Union Hall that night. They approached him with pistols drawn and told him to keep his hands above the table. Billy was held without bail. His attorney, Wilson Butner, quit after he saw the evidence against Gohl. Gohl told a reporter that he felt compelled to dismiss the guy. So he's still trying to like play it cool. But he's so screwed, even his lawyer was like, can't do this. I can't take this hit. Bessie Gohl, his wife, stubbornly proclaimed her husband's innocence.
I love that he has a wife.
Yeah, and supplied him with fruit, law books, and weapons for a breakout that were confiscated after Billy bragged about them.
Behind every serial killer is a strong woman.
Yeah. What's really funny about this is his downfall is just that he can't believe that anyone's going to take him down. Like, even...
Well, dude, once you've murdered at least 200 people, probably more, yeah, why would you think you could get caught at that point?
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you just keep walking into places and people calling you king, and you're like, oh, I guess that's just how my life is always.
Eventually you have to act accordingly.
Yeah. Technology is not up to date enough to be able to stop you, really, or like there's no DNA tracing and shit like that. Like, once somebody's gone for 2 days, they're just gone. Like,
they're just gone, man. Now that Billy had been arrested, reports of Billy's crimes flooded the Aberdeen Police Department for months. Like,
quick, write coffee table books.
No, but the thing is, after he got arrested, everyone was like, oh, thank God, I can finally go to the police without being scared he's going to murder me and my family.
So they got way more reports.
Yes,
and stuff
like, as soon as they basically, the floodgates opened and everyone's like, he's been bullying all of us for years. And by bullying, we mean...
killing our dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's what I was going to say next. He was accused of arson, robbery, burglary, cattle rustling, smuggling, poisoning, piracy, and the murder of numerous human beings and animals, including Andy Jacobson's dog. Klingenberg was terrified that he was going to be taken back to Billy. That's the guy, right. Once he found out, he's like, oh, thank God.
Jail? Thank God.
Yeah, he found out he's wanted for Billy's accomplice, and he said, thank God that's it. I thought you were bringing me back to Billy. He'd kill me for sure if he could get his hands on me. I'll tell you everything I know. and I have the account here. I saved on my phone. Billy had sent for him on December 20th, 1909. When I come up to the union office, Billy Gohl took me inside and he gave me a gun and he told me, "We have got to go get Hadberg at my shack on Indian Creek." I said to Billy, "Ain't that possible to smooth that off in a little decent way?" "No, there's no other way to do it," he says. "I'm staring right at the penitentiary. Now you take this gun," he says, and I took it. I shoved it into my pocket. Well, that night I went home. Next night I met Billy and John Hoffman. We took the launch along with us, and we come outside the bay, and Billy Gohl fired 4 shots into the back of John Hoffman. He told me to lash him to this anchor while the man was hollering. He hollered, "Bill, oh Bill, for God's sakes, don't kill me." Still,
Billy, I trust you so much. Why?
Billy, God, why?
I thought you were the greatest man in all of Aberdeen.
I thought we were a team, Billy. I thought it was you and me against the world. I didn't know what Charles was doing. I thought he was just your roommate.
Never saw this side of you, Billy.
Never saw this coming. So John Klingenberg says, "Still, I couldn't do nothing to the man. The man was hollering, and I was afraid to touch him. I was shivering all over, and Billy Gohl, he was kicking him in the face and sat on his stomach," which is a weird move. You're just bleeding out from your chest. This dude's just teabagging your chest.
Teabagging your belly button? Yeah. That's not cool.
You like that, man?
You just pinch your hands down and spits. Yeah. Just drill spits down.
Yeah, no, he's just giving him a noogie.
Just big brother
Indian
bullying.
burn. Wow, yeah. So eventually, Billy got tired of him yelling and shot the guy in the head, covering the boat in brains and blood. I had to give him a hand to tie the man to the anchor to save myself. Well, we got down to Indian Creek that night, and we went over to Charlie Hadberg, who was standing on the beach as the gasoline launch got stuck in the middle of the slough in the mud. Gohl tied the boat up by the stern so it would swamp with water and wash out the evidence of Hoffman's gruesome death. Klingenberg and Gohl were invited in by Hadberg, given food and beds. Billy Gohl went to sleep. The whole night
Dude, just slept like a baby. No,
this was a psychopath.
Guys, y'all handle that. I need to catch some Z's.
Billy Gohl went to sleep. The whole night I couldn't sleep. I was going out and in, thinking of the thing that Billy had done, Klingenberg said. I like how he was like, I was just thinking about what Billy did.
And Billy was thinking about nothing.
The next morning we got to the launch, but the engine wouldn't start, and Billy Gohl proposed we had to pull out. When Billy Gohl comes to me, he says to me, "You take him. If you don't take him, I take him." Klingenberg recognized his intent. Billy arranged seating in the launch so Hadberg was rowing and his back was towards Klingenberg. Gohl had told Klingenberg not to shoot Hadberg until they had cleared the slough. So, you know what a slough is?
No.
It's like a waterway.
Okay.
So they were just getting out of the slough into the river, basically. Billy Gohl gave me a sign to shoot, and I did so, because I know if I had not done it, Billy Gohl would have shot the pair of us. We tied the man to the anchor, which Billy Gohl and Charlie Hadberg had stole from the gasoline launch logger, and I throwed him in. The 2 men dumped 3 guns, a tool case, and Hadberg's grip full of clothes into the water within sight of the dead man's shack. Pitifully, the lucky horseshoe and pasteboard sign over Hadberg's door couldn't save him from Billy Gohl. The sign said, "Live every day so you can look every man in the eye and tell him to go to hell." And underneath it, it said Indian Creek Philosophy by Charles Hadberg. So
cool.
That's a cool bow on that. After Klingenberg testified, it was basically over. Like, after he said all that, and he had all of that, the jury was pretty much, seemed like he was sweating.
Oh, that all makes perfect sense. Okay.
Yeah, and...
that ties up all of these loose ends.
The judge asked Sheriff Payette, who you may remember from the Wild Man of the Wynucci episode.
I don't, but no? I've been very drunk for both of these.
Yeah, so same sheriff for both stories. That's how close they were.
Oh wow! Fuck. Can I give this take right quick? Mm-hmm. Not a great sheriff. Maybe not great at his job.
No, I think this was its own version of No Country for Old Men.
Just 2 of the most notorious serial killers of all time, back to back, within enough time that it's the same sheriff.
Yeah. So Judge Sheeks represented, who's the judge that was seeing over the case. Mm-hmm. And this guy represented Brigham Young in an alimony suit against his 19th wife, Anna Eliza. So just...
So I don't know the story of Brigham Young really. I just know that a school's named after him, and that's about as far. And I know he's just like
he's a big part of.
He's Mormon, dude. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, well.
Did he have some shit about him? Is there some scandals around
this
him?
judge represented him in an alimony suit against his 19th wife, Anna Elizabeth.
Yeah, but the 19th wife didn't throw me off just because I knew he was Mormon.
Yeah.
But I was curious if there was like some shit about him. Okay.
No, that's just made this judge's career, apparently.
I got you.
He really hung his hat on that.
No, I would too. I mean, look, all these years later, I know that name. That name rang out to me.
So the judge chose the jurors carefully, dismissing anyone who didn't believe in the death penalty.
Wait, say that one more time.
He chose the jurors carefully.
Who didn't believe?
Yeah, if you didn't believe in the death penalty, get the fuck out of here.
Okay, we're putting this dude to death. We're stacking this deck.
Prosecutor William E. Campbell. That was the prosecutor, William E. Campbell, and I really only said that because his assistant's name was Elmer E. Boner.
I mean, I get that.
Okay.
Don't take that out.
That was a footnote, and I was like, if that got kept in as a footnote, I'm putting it in. Kleinberg testified that Billy told him if he hadn't killed Hadberg, that his wife, Bess, would have killed Hadberg. Billy was acting cocky and boisterous in the courtroom, but he started getting pale, and they said he wore a lunatic smile over his raw nerves, which sounds like he looked the way a man who did what he did should look. The jury recommended that Gohl's life be spared.
The jury did?
Yeah.
All these people that believe in the death penalty?
A lot of these people wanted people to die.
Dude, just call that fucking
Did you catch a fruit fly?
Whatever. Yeah.
All right. Well.
Got that on camera? Cool.
You get a nice Mr. Miyagi moment here. The jury recommended that Gohl's life be spared, amazingly. Life in prison. But on May 24th, Judge Sheik sentenced him to life imprisonment at Walla Walla Institution. He based the decision on the large number of jurors opposed to the death penalty. So it's funny because he tried to choose jurors who, and it seems like it didn't work because even after all this, he's like, seems like a lot of these people don't want to put him to death.
I mean, maybe Aberdeen they just have a heart. They just don't want to.
Yeah, that's the only nice thing about this story.
I don't know which way it depends on the crime. I think because sometimes I think you should if there is a death, like for people like this, there should be a death penalty, but you should also have to do like 25 years in jail first. Like you should have to do
give him some time in case some evidence comes up that helps him out.
You do so no, fuck you. You do, like, instead of it just ending quickly and now it's over. No,
you're thinking about this differently.
You suffer for 25 more years. And
Chase wants you to hurt.
And then we're going to murder you.
Okay.
If there is a such thing as a death penalty. I'm a little back and forth on it or whatever. But if there is, I feel like shooting them is letting them off, like, too quickly. Like, you need to sit and think about what you did and how bad shit is. And then once you've come to that realization, and maybe even better yourself, we're gonna fucking murder you. That's
Chase for president 2024.
Hey.
No, you won't be old enough.
No, not yet. That's right. 2028. I'll be ready. I'll be more radical. Who knows what the world will look like by then.
I'll be his running mate. He doesn't even get to choose.
I'm running on the death penalty. I'm a one-issue person.
And I'm for environmental justice. I'm also a one-issue person.
Man, you ever just go off on a bit that you're not really sure if you really believe in, and then it's recorded forever as you're the murder everybody
guy? And your friend won't ever take it out?
Oh, I know. Hey, you're right. Let's have a sip.
Oh man, I love this. The way everything wound up was the jury based a decision on the large number of jurors opposed to the death penalty, and the jury actually requested leniency.
Man, he must have been a charming dude.
He really was, and to his credit back then, like, the union kind of needed psychopaths just because they were up against all these crazy agents that were trying to disrupt the unions and,
I forget how important the union part of that is to his, like, why
the community, too. Like, a lot of people, it's like...
If you fight for people's jobs, it's going to be hard for them to turn against you.
Exactly. Yeah. And the testimony naming Gohl came from the guy who admitted to pulling the trigger also. So Klingenberg was like, Billy did all this shit, but then I pulled the trigger, and he definitely got a really light sentence because he did that. Oh, by the way, Billy bowed to the court.
Just out of respect.
Yeah. They spared his life, and he had never, ever spared anyone's life. So he was like, I respect you. That's crazy. I can't believe you did that.
I'm going to murder all 12 of you.
Eventually, somehow. Kleinberg wound up serving time for second-degree manslaughter, and then he became a tailor and a productive member of society.
Like I can go get a suit and I get from that man? All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. He got bullied into doing this, man.
Yeah, he said that one thing about that he pulled the trigger on that person because he knew if he didn't, he would just die too.
Yeah.
Like that's not
Yeah.
that's not a way a murderer he's just trying to survive.
And in this case, justice, you really wanted justice, and I don't know that if it's justice, but it's horrible. Billy died, they say he died in prison from syphilis. But
Good.
Records show it was a mix of a lot of real bad shit. So he basically seemed like he died in the most painful way possible.
Good.
He had syphilis, which eroded his brain, which caused him to be paralyzed. And since he was bound to his bed, he basically died from like skin infections, combined with his brain rotting.
That's just. I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that? Yeah.
I'm
Well,
okay with that.
I had read this story as a kid, but I think I just read the highlights and I never read the details. And just reading the highlights,
What are the highlights like? Yeah, how is it like? What's the elevator pitch for this?
Elevator pitch was like he's a union guy. He would hit guys over the head and dump them into the river, and he would like Shanghai people, and he he killed up to 200 people basically. Okay. So when you just like throw the stats out there, a lot of people in history you lose the fact that this was real people and things that actually happened.
For sure.
But when you actually go through and read all the accounts, it's kind of harrowing. The guy was terrifying. I mean, he ate a guy. He left Germany allegedly because he murdered someone there, right? Yeah. Like it's so yeah. Thanks for tuning in. How do you feel about that?
Oh, not great.
No?
But look, anytime you want to drink and read me a folklore story, I'm in.
Yeah, and next time I swear I'll get out of the harbor. I might do something in France.
Yeah, let's find some non-murderers too. Let's
No.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
It's hard to punch up these murderers.
To me, the Wild Man of the Wynucci was more of like a forest hermit story, and this one is more of a less of a murder and more of like a, hey, my hometown, there was a guy who was a little shifty.
Shifty?
Yeah, he would shift from not killing you to dumping your body into the ocean. Thank you for watching all of this. Like, subscribe, and share. Send it out to your friends. And comment if you want me to cover some folklore, crazy stories from history that you know of, and I'll do it. All right.
It's all
Thanks. See you next time.
Brought up in Callio. Hurrah, the other girls who'd let me go. She took me in the parlor and said, won't you be me beau? Hurrah, the other girls who'd let me go. Oh, do let me go.